A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
He put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Therapy Hour. I am your host, Rusty Lozano. You know, I was listening to this the intro to the show, and it talked about thinking your pain away. And that was a news story that Channel 8 did on our center about how thoughts can provoke a physical manifestation. So if you overthink a situation, then it can actually create more of an exaggeration or exacerbation of your symptoms. So in the case with headaches, or in the case with anger, anxiety, depression, you're consistently bombarded with thoughts that replaying in your mind that, well, these are my circumstances, and I'm not very happy. And then the offset of that, the behavior is that you're usually experiencing avoidances, sadness, anger. That's frustration tolerance. Or it's stinking thinking. It's also just a concept of just continuing to exacerbate and make some things worse by just continually entertaining the idea. The other day, I had a little girl in the gym, and she was actually, we had this indoor obstacle course at my center. And so what we do is we actually have a clinic portion of our practice where we treat and teach calm down skills, relaxation strategies, breathing techniques, body techniques, ways of actually controlling your body. And then also there's an education component of, you know, what do I do with my thinking? How do I train my thoughts in order not to overthink circumstances and make them worse? So I had a little girl in the gym. And, you know, it's designed to be tough. There's this indoor system of swings with flashing lights, fog machine, and music. And so it's designed to overwhelm the senses. And so what we're trying to do is exacerbate or create like an issue where it's hard to think, it's hard to manage your emotions, you get really frustrated. And so there was a little girl that was in there who's just kind of wailing. She's screaming, crying, having a really difficult time trying to maneuver through the obstacles. And so I call that getting bit by this place, you know, because there is no goal. There is no trophy at the end of this task. It's actually just a place where I can test out to see if they can actually use their techniques on the fly, or if we need to go back into the clinic setting and revisit the strategies. And so here she was getting really upset and trying to walk her through her techniques. And so this is one of those situations where she had tears coming down her eyes and was really upset because she could not make the connection from one swing to the other. And so she was really upset. And so we went back into the room and we revisited the whole concept of how she was really overthinking this. And so the frustration levels went really high. So, it's a topic that's actually, we hear about this all the time. Frustration tolerance, anger control, stress management, working under adverse circumstances, waking up for a 9-to-5, school, homework, projects. So, I watch a show on Discovery Channel. You ever watched Naked and Afraid, McRae? And it's a really cool program that actually puts these survivalists in very peculiar situations, and I really enjoy watching it because it's the epitome of what I like to spend my time on, which is how thinking about your circumstances can affect the outcome, and it can actually affect how what your emotional state's going to be at any given moment. And can people provoke reactions from you? Can circumstances trigger your emotions, and how well can you manage them? So I have brought another guest on from the show. His name is Shane Lewis, and he's one of my favorite contenders. He and EJ Schneider and Jeff Jausch, these guys are pretty hard-hitting contenders. But what I'd like to do is visit with Shane about his experience, because he actually has an interesting past, and he's going to spend some time with us about a book that he's written that kind of talks about where he's been and what he's been through, what he's endured, and then now he's actually how he's forged and refined himself to become a survivalist. So what I figured we do is bring him on the show and just go ahead and not worry about segments. Let's just kind of flow with this and kind of have a conversation and pick his brain a little bit. So Shane Lewis, are you there, bud?
Yeah, I am. Thanks, Rusty, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I had a really interesting conversation on the way to the show, and I was like, dude, I wish we were recording this, because it was just an amazing concept and insight into how the frustration tolerance actually, it goes beyond just a day-to-day circumstance like in a survival situation, but how this can be translated into everyday life. And so you and I actually picked up this conversation, and it was really interesting. So I'd figure, if we can actually see if we can recreate that here and talk to a little bit about what your experience was on the show. So what was it like for you to, first of all, kind of let's tell the listening audience like what the show was about. Can you kind of give us a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, I think, the concept is amazing. That's why I wanted to be a part of it. It's new. It had never been done before. And it's not so much about the nudity. It's about stripping away all of your facades and your images and your ego and everything. Because when you're standing out naked somewhere and you're in the middle of nowhere and you're standing next to someone that you've got to try to figure out how to communicate and work with that person on the fly, there's a lot of challenges that come out of it. And so that's what I really appreciated was you've got nothing to rely on except for your own skill set, and I'm not talking about, fire starting and things like that. I'm talking about your emotional and your physical skill set to be able to handle the bombardment as you set up in your gym, so to speak, that is about to happen to you for the next set period of time.
Mm. And, and that there are a lot of unknown circumstances when you're in a situation like that. You can't really plan for things like that. You can't really plan for the things that you endured. Because you have no food source, you have no water source, you're naked, you're in the elements, and so not only do you not have any sort of instructions or you have one tool, but then you also have to kind of figure out, okay, how do I get my basic necessities?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and I think it's something that people don't understand a lot because you don't realize what your basic necessities are until you don't have your amenities anymore. And then you have to reevaluate the situation and be like, wow, I can't do X, Y, and Z. So how do I get, ABC done,
So that's planning, right? And it's really hard to plan. Like right now, there's a Cure concert in Dallas tonight. And,
nice.
And everybody's planning for it. And, whenever we're going to go, you have to be at a certain time. You have to correlate your rides and you can predict what's going to happen. But you don't have some of those. You don't have that basic prediction ability. You just know your immediate surroundings and what needs to be done. So I'm sure that you're being bombarded by a lot of different thoughts and a lot of different ideas as far as like what's the first step? What do I do? So what did you do? What in your let's go to your very first show, because you were on 2 series with Discovery Channel. You were on one of the first shows that ever aired. And also, you were in this XL series where, now there was more than one player. So usually the show is just one individual, one pair, one male, one female. What was that first show like for you?
It was a lot of fun. It was an environment that I was actually excited to be in. I did not know my location prior to, being sent out there just, days ahead of time. But once I found out what it was, I was very excited to be in that environment. I was excited to meet someone who, would be, someone who could challenge and push themselves, because obviously you wouldn't be involved in this unless you could push yourself, unless you were somewhat self-aware of, what your skill set is and things like that. So I was hoping to meet, make a lifelong friend and have all this amazing fun and, and enjoy the environment that I was in. So it was very nerve-wracking a little bit, but I thought I was going to have fun. I'm like, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to be doing something completely out of my element. I'm out of my comfort zone. Sure. Why not?
So the idea is that you were actually looking forward to an idea that you had about the show and the way it was going to roll, but then I'm sure a lot of things didn't turn out the way you actually thought.
Oh, no. The best laid plans. It's something I've learned in my life growing up that, things are better if you don't put expectations on them. I know it's really hard to do because we have limited downtime and limited playtime in our lives, but believe it or not, your playtime will be much better if you just go, I'm going to roll with it a little bit. I'm not going to try to orchestrate and plan everything out a little bit because I'm not allowing spontaneity to affect my growth as a human being. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And you know what? And putting expectation can also lead to failure. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
From the Fed Penn Credit Union Weather Center, this update is brought to you by Racetrack. Cloudy today with a chance of showers and a high in the upper 60s. Same for this evening with a low around 63.
Your Sodapalooza cup gets you more than free refills. Just fill up at Racetrack. Snap a selfie with your cup. Then post it to Instagram or Twitter with hashtag SodapaloozaSelfie and hashtag contest for a free chance to win an epic road trip. See website for details.
The Jeff Crilly Show, Saturday morning at 11 on Talk Radio 1190. Join Jeff as he talks about trending topics and interviews newsmakers with the secrets to being healthy, wealthy, and wise. It's The Jeff Crilly Show, Saturday mornings from 11 to noon on Talk Radio 1190.
Here's a quiz. Is identity theft just when someone other than you puts charges on your credit card? Nope, that's part of it, but identity theft is actually when someone pretends they're you for any number of undesirable reasons, like opening new accounts or a utility bill. Is it true that identity theft can't happen to you? Nope. 1 in 4 people have experienced identity theft. Will LifeLock help you more with identity theft than free credit monitoring will? Yep. LifeLock's proprietary technology detects a huge range of identity threats. And if you ever have a problem, one of our U.S.-based agents will work to resolve it. So how'd you do on the quiz? Come on, how'd you really do? No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But with LifeLock, you get a versus a when it comes to identity protection. Membership starts at just $9.99 a month plus applicable taxes. Go to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS to get 10% off now. LifeLock.
Your home is your castle. So when termites invade, you want the strongest defense you can get. You want Terminix, an elite force of termite-fighting professionals armed with 85 years of successful missions. Right now, we'll design a custom battle plan for defending your home, and it starts with a free termite inspection. Call 1-800-700-2951. We'll be relentless in our quest to wipe out those invaders, and we won't stop until your home is completely termite-free. We can also defend your home against future invasions and the damage they may cause with our Ultimate Protection Guarantee. If they come back, so will we. The Ultimate Protection Guarantee is the strongest guarantee in the business. It's our unbreakable vow to eliminate any termite that even thinks of breaching your walls. Defending your castle is a big job, so call Terminix today for a free termite inspection. 1-800-700-2951. That's 1-800-700-2951.
Ultimate Protection Guarantee not available on every plan. Limitations apply. Call for details.
You appreciate the feeling of a clean, smooth shave from a quality blade. So why are you messing around with generic razors that cost $32 for an 8-pack when you can shave with Harry's high-quality German-engineered blades for half the price? Harry's will give you their starter set, complete with a razor, 3 of their world-famous blades, and shaving cream for just $15. And shipping is always free. We'll also give you $5 off your first order. So go to Harry's.com right now and enter code 7788 at checkout. Code 7788.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we are hanging out with Shane Lewis from the show Naked and Afraid. So, Shane, I want to really jump in. There were a lot of things that happened to you on the show, things that really tested you. For one, your hut caught on fire when you were sleeping inside of it. And
that was definitely a high-stress moment. Yeah, that was definitely a high-stress moment.
So tell us what happened. What was going on? You were actually asleep inside of your hut.
Yeah, I was asleep inside, and I felt the warmth of the hut increase, and I was like, oh, this is not good. And then, by the time I, realized what was going on, I could feel the carbon monoxide from burning, pine trees and stuff, which was kind of wet because, we got 15 inches of rain the first 9 days, so there was nothing dry. So everything smoked. And I was like, whoa, I can't breathe. And by the time I got out, I pulled myself out of the lodge. I landed in the mud, and I looked up, and the thing was like a 20-foot-high wall of flames. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I walked away, and I was like, I cannot believe that my shelter just burnt down on day 14, and I've got to build this thing again tomorrow. No.
So
I was like, please don't rain tomorrow.
So what happened, dude? How did your hut catch on fire?
I think, what was happening is, because it was so cold, 65, 67 degrees at night, and that's not super cold, but when it's 110 or something during the day and the humidity level is really high, 70 degrees at night is freezing cold. So we were building up a huge fire to maintain it so we could pass out and go to sleep for an hour or two there, and then the fire would die down and we would wake up and put some more logs on it, and I think we just lost control. It dried out the space because we were forced to put the fire underneath our lodge because of the amount of rain and moisture that was in the air, and the only way to dry out wood was to put it underneath where we were sleeping to keep it dry so we could burn it. And even at that, we were burning wet wood 90% of the time. So it was a microcosm of steps that led up to losing half our shelter.
Dude, so that took a lot of work to build the shelter, and in those circumstances, it took a lot of work to build the fire. So let me generalize this concept. If something like that were to happen, there would be a lot of emotions flying around, maybe some accusations, maybe some anger. How did you handle that?
There was definitely a lot of accusations, and if you see the episode, you see my response is not exactly supportive and loving in that moment, but under the circumstances, I thought I handled myself pretty good. I was very upset, and I couldn't attack my teammate. The circumstances are difficult for both of us, and so I made my comment in frustration about how frustrated I was and angry I was about the situation, but attacking my teammate wasn't going to make her help me rebuild the lodge tomorrow, and realizing that it's now we're 2 weeks into this, we're not getting the kind of protein that we had on day 2 and 3 in my system to be able to build another lodge. I was like, if I tear her apart right now in my anger, I'm going to lose her for the next 7 days, and I still need her at some point in the future to help me get through this, So I was like, I'm not going to take her apart. It's not 100% her fault. As frustrated as I am about the situation, it was not going to benefit either one of us to escalate it, So that's what I was thinking about.
Right. But you know what? But that's an intellectual way of actually thinking about it. That's a heady way of thinking about it. But in the moment, what did you do? How did you? I cussed her out. I yelled at her. I screamed. I walked away to let my anger calm down and collect my thoughts for a minute. Like, how am I going to handle this? I was looking around in what mild light that I had because of the fire and stuff to see what kind of materials I still had left to repair, how much had just been burned. And right.
I was processing that to try to distract my mind from the anger, to try to take away and not allow my the anger to resonate, because it would have not been very good for anybody in the situation.
Right. So there was that strong emotional reaction. There was that anger. There was that cussing her out. And then, that's the emotional reaction. That's getting bit by the circumstances, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So your coping mechanism at that point then was to walk away, was to regather your thoughts?
She asked me a question on the diary camera, and I'm literally like, I don't care. And I just walked away and sat like 20 feet away and put my head down like, I can't believe this just happened to me.
Right. So that was your process. You cooled yourself down. You left the situation. You removed yourself from the environment, and then just kind of went through your own process of regathering yourself.
Yeah. I was thankful that the fire didn't go out. We still had fire. We still had some warmth, and I was trying to take a tally of what the positive things were, because if you allow negativity to take you apart and really creep in, you won't make 4 days in a very stressful situation. It's all mental preparation. Any stressful situation relies down to how did I mentally prepare for the daily curveballs that are going to come, because that's life.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's a really, I think that's a fair assessment. If you focus on the negativity in a situation like that, it will bring you down. That's where you consistently think about a circumstance, and it will create pain. And that's one of the things that I actually try to teach patients how to do, is dissect the circumstance, disassociate what happened. Here's the action, here's the reaction. Let's go back and let's look at how the reaction is manifesting. The action is there, right? The place caught on fire. It was destroyed. Your safety was in jeopardy. But then there's a moment where, like, there's two things happening. Your thoughts and your physical reaction, they're both working in unison. So if you detach the thoughts, if you can actually somehow control and detach the thoughts from the physical reaction, then you can actually get a hold of the circumstance. And that's one of the things. Go ahead.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. And the only thing I can, that's something that I've learned to do very well. I've learned that the big things are always going to be there, and they always work themselves out. So if you handle the initial, explosion of something, catastrophe happening to you, and you emotionally handle it well, it's much better off for you.
Right.
The little things, turn around, take a breath, focus on the little things. It will help ease the pain of that, because if you get lost in that moment, you're not going to recover. It's just too difficult.
And it's too difficult to recover. It's very true. But you can always go back and actually do something to correct it. I think that there's always something that can be done. It doesn't matter how far down the rabbit hole you get, because a lot of people think that if you don't manage this in the first 5-10 minutes of a circumstance, then it escalates, and then it may last days and days. I've even seen kids that actually do that with their parents. They stay upset, and I emphasize to them, look, just go up and just take responsibility, apologize, and it's over. It's like your bailout, like in the show. You tap out, then they swoon in and they remove you from the situation. So that resolution is that quick. I mean, it could be over in a matter of seconds.
I agree. I think a lot of times, as a kid who grew up with, I was a lot like the kids that you're dealing with in your program, which is one thing I really appreciate about you and why I wanted to, to talk to you a little bit. I think, I responded that way for many, many years. The way that, that little girl did in your climbing exercise. And I think as you become a little bit more controlled and understand how, your equilibrium is, and trying not to, get really lost in it. I think a lot of times we live in a world that's bombarding us to be narcissistic, to always look inward, and always focus on, how we're feeling or how we're viewed or how everyone is looking at us, instead of looking outward. And I think we need to look outward. How am I projecting the way that I'm, how am I affecting my surrounding as well? Okay, this catastrophe happened to me, but if I become a catastrophe because of it, I am now going to drag other people into this catastrophe.
Right. And it doesn't get any better for yourself. It just continues to escalate. So, and we're talking about folks, when you get angry, when you get anxious, when you feel depressed, when you feel stress, any one of these circumstances that are invoking an emotional reaction, stop and think about the process. Think about what's happening. Think not about the circumstance. If you go to my house and, it happened again, we have several TVs and we have small kids, and the backs of the remotes they're missing on all of them, just about. And I have to use a piece of duct tape to keep the batteries in. And I remember the first time it happened, I flipped out. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And so then I was looking around everywhere, and I knew that, one of the little kids have gotten into it, and, they were exploring and they lost it. So then that became like a trigger for me, a little thing like that. And so, but, as I kind of think about like where I am now and how I've like evolved myself, I try to understand the circumstance. Well, he's curious. He probably took the batteries out, probably put them in something else like, a Nintendo Wii remote or something like that, and, needed the batteries and he forgot to do it. It was a mistake. Now, is it going to affect my life? No, it's not going to affect anything. It's not going to affect the functionality of the remote. And actually, if I felt that strongly about it, I could go get another remote, and like find a solution for it. But if I perseverate on that circumstance, if I perseverate and I keep thinking about it over and over and over again, I'm going to work myself up. I'm going to work myself up.
And now you're going to have a full-blown trigger that's going to bring you to that escalated moment instantly every time it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it could even be just like the kid actually just looking at me or being in the same room where they do something very similar, and then it triggers the same kind of response. Now I'm talking about my own circumstance, but I mean, generalizing this to everybody, escalation of these emotional manifestations, the triggering effect is what you have to actually concentrate on, not the circumstance, but how am I taking this? How am I understanding it? What am I believing and taking from this particular moment that's making me so upset? And if you can actually divide that, if you can actually find a way to dissect it, separate thoughts from body response, then you have
that is the key right there. That is the key, I feel, compartmentalizing one aspect from another, because then you're not letting the snowball roll downhill, I mean, it's just saying, okay, this is here, and I know it's a lot easier said than done, believe me, because I had many years of trying to struggle through it, and it's well documented in my book. I don't hide my demons or my struggles at all, because I felt that was the only way to relate to the audience. But I think we just need to not snowball, compartmentalize and say, okay, this happened and it's not part of this, and no, it feels like this and it may apply this emotion, then I just have to try to focus on something other than compiling one moment into 5 moments,
Yeah, absolutely.
And feeling like you're a failure just because I think a lot of times we are defensive with our acceptance of culpability for our own behavior because of some failure aspect. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of, not looking secure or confident, and I think that's a big problem. None of us are confident. None of us are, fearless. None of us are secure in anything that we have. Life is too fluid for that. And I just think the more that we begin to recognize and acknowledge, my own fallibilities, the more patience I have for catastrophes that happen, because ultimately it's just another fallible moment. A catastrophe is just a fallible moment on some way, shape, or form. So if we're aware of our own fallibilities, I think we'll be much more patient when the other ones come. That's just how I view it.
Beautiful statement. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
From the Fed Penn Credit Union Weather Center, this update is brought to you by Racetrack. Cloudy today with a chance of showers and a high in the upper 60s. Same for this evening with the low around 63.
Your Sodapalooza cup gets you more than free refills. Just fill up at Racetrack. Snap a selfie with your cup, then post it to Instagram or Twitter with hashtag #SodapaloozaSelfie and hashtag contest for a free chance to win an epic road trip. See website for details.
We all know that spring showers bring flowers. You went to elementary school, you learned that one. But do those spring showers make you regret not cleaning out your gutter? The last good rain we got, did you hear that familiar sound of the water lapping over the gutter and splattering on the ground outside your window? That might actually be the sound of your home's foundation being damaged or your soil being eroded, which leads to that in the first place, or eventually. LeafGuard, one-piece covered gutter system, perfectly engineered to let the water in, keeps the leaves and debris out, and best of all, LeafGuard gutters do not clog, but if they ever do, which they won't, you can rest assured they carry a lifetime no-clog warranty.
This month, get 75% off labor and $200 Visa gift card with a qualifying purchase. Set up your free gutter inspection and estimate today and get a $25 gas card just for letting LeafGuard show you how they can make your life easier. No purchase necessary. 214-504-2154. That's 214-504-2154. Or go to their website at guttersdallas.com.
This is Pete the Fast Greek, host of Race Talk, the motorsports talk show, heard every Sunday live from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on Talk Radio 1190. When the races are over, we're just getting started with the latest news and results from NASCAR, NHRA, the IndyCar Series, and what's going on right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth racing scene. And remember, keep your racing on the track, not on the street.
This is Shaquille O'Neal
and the Shaquettes,
reminding you that anytime is a good time.
Good time!
For the cooling, drying, fresh scent of Gold Bond powder spray. like after the gym,
or a crowded elevator ride,
or golf,
or working with farm animals,
or a hard day's work.
like sportscasting.
You said it, ladies. Stay cool with Gold Bond Powder Spray.
Stay cool with Gold Bond.
Hey, folks, it's Michael Berry, and I love real estate. Always have. I owned a real estate brokerage firm. And to me, real estate is a great investment strategy. It's a great retirement strategy. And if you want to learn more, there's a great show that comes on Monday through Friday right here called The Del Walmsley Show. It's the Del Walmsley radio show. You want to learn more about being an informed investor? You're going to love it.
Listen to the Del Walmsley Show Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on Talk Radio 1190. You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back. We're talking about the survival show with Shane Lewis from the show Naked and Afraid, Discovery Channel, Naked and Afraid. Shane, you actually wrote a book, and you've been through some things yourself, and you actually you mention it some on the show, but it's never really specific about some of the things that you endured. But you've had a pretty tough life.
Yeah, that's one reason why, again, I appreciate you, inviting me on the show is, a lot of times, I feel coming from being one of the kids that, you would be working with in your program, I feel a lot of adults tend to talk at kids like that. And it's, and I know that from an adult's perspective, especially for the adults that do care, that it's hard to relate to us and, it's hard to handle us and try to get us to understand that you're looking out for our best interest. And most of the time we don't feel that way because of the dynamics of how our childhoods are developed or how our brains handle situations or respond to things. So what I really appreciated about writing the book was to be able to let people know it's okay to fail. It's okay to be a disaster. It's okay to struggle, and it's okay to figure out who you are and how to go about that. And it's okay if it takes longer than anybody else does. That's fine because there is no real timetable to life. Unfortunately, society is, at a point where it's putting serious constraints, but I don't think that humans are supposed to be treated that way. And I think it's okay to be, working through things a little slower than other people. And what I like about it is that I have lived it. I lived in, 5 foster homes and four institutional boarding schools for 13 years without parents and without any real supervision. And I moved 11 times in 13 years, and I was constantly moving in the middle of every school year system. So you can imagine all the bullying and things that I had to deal with. And growing up with that, being the new kid every 8 months in a brand new school system that has socioeconomical differences from the last one that I was in. So it can be a little bit struggling. It can hurt your psyche and it can hurt the way that you view the world. And so, but it's not the end of the world. You can learn, you can grow, and, it doesn't define you and it doesn't wreck your life.
Yeah. Let's go back to that a little bit, just with your comfort level of talking about, that's a lot to have to deal with. I mean, you moving from foster home to foster home, and then in the different schools that you're in, you were alone a lot of the time. Yes, and that's actually been the hardest struggle of my adulthood, is learning how to work with others, which is the one reason I loved about being on Naked and Afraid. And it gives me a chance to work with someone in this mature level, being forced into that kind of environment. And seeing how well I can handle myself or not handle myself, Yeah. But being alone, though, I mean, you didn't get a lot of guidance from a parent, but I'm sure you were given guidance from some source, but not like an accessible resource like you would think, like, hey, I have a question for my dad or I have a question for my mom. So yeah, what I got a lot of mandated direction about how you should be handling things. And unfortunately, after a certain period of time, I didn't trust anyone enough to ask them anything, because when you get bounced around the system in this particular manner, everything you say or do or look or expression is being psychoanalyzed so that they could try to figure out what's wrong with you. So at a certain point, you start behaving completely differently because you're just tired of being analyzed, Right. So there's no way for you to be really genuine. So how do you grow as a person when you're just always faced with like, well, I have something I'm struggling with, which all individuals, all kids do. It's a normal part of life. But then, like, you feel like anytime that you were bringing something up, you felt like you were being judged and like something was wrong with you?
Being judged. Yeah, like if you bring a question up like, hey, I'm feeling this way, and they go, wow, why does it make you feel that way? How does it make you feel that way?
Yeah.
How do you think you're going to respond to that for the rest of the week? And you're like, oh, you're analyzing me. No, that's not why I asked you that question. Oh, this was pointless,
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? And then that whole
and
concept.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong, because the struggle is very difficult for you in your situation, because you're dealing with kids who have already desensitized themselves to, any adult. I mean, I'm not all of them, but I'm sure some of them.
A lot of them have,
point,
yes.
correct?
They really have. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're already at that distrust level, and so that's a very difficult barrier to break. I think if you just, if we just try to teach them that they're not failing, they're not failing, and no one wants to fail. I don't care. Even Damien doesn't want to fail as a child, So if he feels like he's a failure, then he's going to continue, to behave that way if that's his only reinforcement. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it certainly does. And I think that seems to be a recurring theme is the whole concept of failure. And then you've spent your life actually testing and forging yourself to be able to rely on yourself, which is a really noble strength. It's a noble quality. And then I
appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's
it's very admirable, dude. I
most
mean,
yeah,
the whole story is very admirable, and and you were tested, and then you put yourself in these situations to see how well you can actually manage through them. And so you were in a situation, excuse me, you were in a situation in the XL series where you were in a camp full of girls, and they weren't very nice to you, and so. There's a lot of things that could have played out. I mean, you could have obviously cussed them out. You could have obviously, insulted them or criticized them or fired back or attacked them, back with your words. But you actually chose to remove yourself from that environment. And I think that's and you were saying that like you removed yourself, and then later on, like you were doing fine all by yourself, and then you were found by two other players on the show, and then you guys developed your own little village, right?
Yeah, we're very, very close. I mean, me, Jeff, and EJ, we literally speak daily. We have a very, very tight bond. We have a very good relationship. I just wanted to point out one thing about one of the motivational reasons for me leaving the girls on XL. There was some bullying aspects that were going on there. I don't really want to get into too much of that because. We can complain about things that are going on around us, but ultimately we are still culpable with how we handle the situations that are going on around us.
Exactly.
People can smack me in the face, but if I don't punch them back in the mouth, then they're I'm going to walk away and laugh. I mean, that's an extreme example. I'm just giving an example.
No, right.
So one thing that I noticed was that the two females that were my teammates, they were having such a good connection between them, and they were having so much fun together after like day 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? Every time that I, was around them, because I had my own things to do, and I'm in a foreign country, and it's well documented. I've traveled to 76 different countries, so exploring another country is fun to me. So I spent my time exploring this environment that I've never been in before, and I would come back and I could feel the animosity. So one of the reasons that I left, I didn't so much have to do with the bullying aspect. It was about removing myself from the situation. The way that we interacted together was not healthy. They interacted healthy together with themselves, but when I got there, it was around them, it wasn't a healthy situation. So I decided, look, they're having a great time and I'm ruining it. So let me remove myself from the situation and they will have a great experience. And at the end of the day, they will say, wow, for 12 days that Shane left us alone, and he was alone for those 12 days, we had a great time. We were able to develop this bond. So even in that moment, I was looking, not just for my own selfish perspective, but I was also looking at somebody else's experience and trying to make their experience as best as I could, even under the circumstance of being bullied by those particular people. That's something I think got lost with everything that was going on.
Yeah, the fact that you made a judgment call that says, look, they really are just kind of better off without me, and it's a win-win for me to remove myself and then to leave them be
Correct.
The way that they are.
Correct. No more stress, no more pain, no more drama, no more arguing, and then most of us are having a good time now. Yep.
That's a pretty big person thing to do because it's very noble because I think a lot of people in those circumstances would try to fight to negotiate, fight to argue and construct a way to make it work. But there are those circumstances sometimes that just doesn't happen, Shane. I mean, realistically, if a kid is trying to make friends and be a part of a group and they keep criticizing, ousting, hurting this individual, then there really is no sense in like trying to conform in a situation that is not healthy. So you do have to make the judgment call and say, you know what, I really am just better away from this. I'm a better person. It's better. It's going to be an all around good thing for them and myself. But that realization, it takes people a long time to get to. It does.
It takes the reinforcement of, if I continue to battle and struggle for my justification, because it's usually what is hurt most is, my feelings and, my justice. I'm not going to get anywhere. In most cases, people are not going to recognize that they're hurting your feelings in that situation anyway. And for you to force them to recognize it is going to create a level of animosity that is not even there yet. So sometimes it's just best, and I know it's really hard for kids to do that. It was hard for me. I mean, it's documented in my book. For 25 years, I couldn't do it.
Right.
And so, but I've learned over time that for the sake of my own, my own sanity, I have to. I have no choice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that there's an important lesson to learn here. If you're in a broken relationship, if you're in a situation that it's just not healthy and it's just not working out, it would be a good time to just consider walking away. Not the easiest thing to do, and that's why you would need support and help. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to keep visiting with Shane. We'll be right back.
From the Fed Penn Credit Union Weather Center, this update is brought to you by Racetrack. Cloudy today with a chance of showers and a high in the upper 60s. Same for this evening with the low around 63.
Your Sodapalooza cup gets you more than free refills. Just fill up at Racetrack, snap a selfie with your cup, then post it to Instagram or Twitter with hashtag #SodapaloozaSelfie and hashtag contest for a free chance to win an epic road trip. See website for details.
The Jeff Crilly Show, Saturday morning at 11 on Talk Radio 1190. Join Jeff as he talks about trending topics and interviews newsmakers with the secrets to being healthy, wealthy, and wise. It's The Jeff Crilly Show, Saturday mornings from 11 to noon on Talk Radio 1190.
Psst, hey, it's me, your car. No, it's not the voice of your car phone or your GPS that gives you driving directions. I'm sorry to interrupt your tunes, but we need to talk. Take a look around. I'm not the new car I used to be. The season's dirt and mud really did a number on my carpet here. And that iced coffee you spilled, that didn't help. And with the rain showers and all, I know it's going to be a real mud bath in here. So do me a favor and get a set of WeatherTech floor liners. Got it? Now, how about a wash and detail? What do you say?
WeatherTech floor liners and cargo liners keep your vehicle's carpet safe from spills and messes. Made of the highest quality materials and laser measured, WeatherTech floor liners are specifically designed for your vehicle. And they're made in America. If it could talk, your vehicle would thank you. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com or call 1-800-CarMats. WeatherTech. Complete protection, completely American made.
Here's a quiz. Is identity theft just when someone other than you puts charges on your credit card? Nope, that's part of it, but identity theft is actually when someone pretends they're you for any number of undesirable reasons, like opening new accounts or a utility bill. Is it true that identity theft can't happen to you? Nope. 1 in 4 people have experienced identity theft. Will LifeLock help you more with identity theft than free credit monitoring will? Yep. LifeLock's proprietary technology detects a huge range of identity threats. And if you ever have a problem, one of our U.S.-based agents will work to resolve it. So how'd you do on the quiz? Come on, how'd you really do? No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But with LifeLock, you get a versus a when it comes to identity protection. Membership starts at just $9.99 a month plus applicable taxes. Go to LifeLock.com and enter promo code NEWS to get 10% off now.
LifeLock.
You appreciate the feeling of a clean, smooth shave from a quality blade. So why are you messing around with generic razors that cost $32 for an 8-pack when you can shave with Harry's high-quality German-engineered blades for half the price? Harry's will give you their starter set, complete with a razor, 3 of their world-famous blades, and shaving cream for just $15. And shipping is always free. We'll also give you $5 off your first order. So go to harrys.com right now and enter code 7788 at checkout. Code 7788.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we're visiting with Shane Lewis from the show Naked and Afraid, survivalist and author, and really an interesting guy to talk to. You know, Shane, you are really humble for as much that you've been through. You know, you're a really easy guy to talk to.
I wasn't always that way. It's just, and one thing that I learned is, you know, a few little notes about my growth on this level. When I realized that my behavior was adversely affecting other people, the way that I felt other people's behavior was affecting me is my decisions, because we make decisions often in our lives and we don't always understand or see the outcome of, you know, on other people's lives, you know, from our decisions. And I started to see negative responses and outcomes from the way that I was treating people. The day that dawned on me was the last day that I started trashing people who were responsible for my life when I was younger. Because as much as I'm angry about how that I grew up, I don't think that anyone who was responsible for my life, my parents, the state of Connecticut, who was my legal guardian as of age of 9, I don't think that their outcome was to wreck my life. I think that they were doing the best that they could, and the curveballs created these ridiculous moments in time that were unanticipated. So once I realized that my behavior was doing that to other people, I had more sympathy and respect for other people that I felt were responsible for my actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes a lot along the lines of, you know, somebody has to be ready for change. So that the change comes from within. It's not something that you're being told to do. So somebody who has influence over you, is very influential, can give you insight, and they can say that's something you need to work on, or you need to change that, you know, whatever manner that you say it. But if the individual's not in a place where they can actually see it for themselves, they won't change.
Well, this is going back to that. This is a perfect example between season 1 and XL. Because let's just bring up the fire incident we're talking about. My initial reaction was this violent anger response to my teammate,
and that's a normal reaction. I mean, that's
right,
you almost died.
Yeah, it didn't translate well to the audience and social media and stuff, and people got the wrong impression of me. So I learned. I was like, okay, well, this is not who I am. This is not the kind of person I am. And yes, everyone can react in this manner. So when I had the really difficult decisions that I had to make on XL, I was incredibly calm. Like, no, I'm going to show who I really am. This is my real personality. I'm actually a very mellow guy, even in cataclysmic situations, because I've had dozens of cataclysmic situations happen to me. So there's no need for me to overreact, you know?
Right. I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, that kind of visceral response, you'll see the same kind of reaction, whether it be a very intense anger response or very intense fear. If you've had a near miss in a car accident, or if your house was burglarized while you're in it, if you were experiencing anything that poses a substantial emotional stress, then you're going to have one of those strong visceral reactions, and that is like understandable.
Yeah, 100% understandable. That's correct.
I mean, there's no explaining that. I mean, it's just like that's just kind of the circumstance. But you know what you're saying is that actually caught your eye. That actually identified itself for you to refine and say, you know what, I can't be this way. And it's not the social media that did it for you, but it's you had that insight. You had that clarity yourself at that particular moment that, wow, okay, I need to work on this. And so...
Yeah, that's what I said. It's one of the things I talked to the producers about. I was like, wow, can I see more than just the 1 hour? Because I'd like to see more of myself so I can be like, wow, this is how the world is seeing me. This is how I'm responding to situations. I would like to learn more about myself, because ultimately my whole goal is to be a better human being. Right. You know, I mean, I used to be a racist person for many years, you know, and I went to Africa for 3 months, and I've learned how to, grow and appreciate other cultures. And now I'm a very cultured, refined human being who has an appreciation for everybody on the planet. And I'm constantly growing. I'm constantly trying to grow myself as a better human being, which is why I titled the book that, Growing Up, growing up institutionalized the globetrotting. Like, this is the reason why I'm growing up. I'm always growing up. I'm not done growing up. I'm still a human being. I'm still going to make mistakes, but it's okay. And I'm still learning my coping skills and how to handle things better. And that's something I like. I think we're always growing.
We're always growing. I don't think you ever stop growing. In fact, science and research has actually shown that the brain is plastic. And this is a concept that hasn't been around very long, but psychoneuroplasticity. And that is that the brain is plastic. So for the longest time, there was the idea that, you have trillions of these neural pathways in the brain as an infant. And so anything that you're going to have an expectation of, or you want your child to have an ability for, you want to expose them to as much as you can so that you keep these neural pathways. But what they've actually found is that the brain consistently is making neural pathways, even at 90. And that's how come you hear about, these puzzles that the geriatric population is involved in learning languages, and it actually, and the offset of that is they can actually slow the development of Alzheimer's and dementia by keeping the brain active, because it's consistently.
I would agree.
Yeah,
100%.
It's consistently making neural pathway connections. So the more that you expose yourself to, the more that you, and in counseling, I remember even in my counseling program at the University of North Texas, there was always an opportunity there to be a part of a counseling component. They actually put you in counseling, group counseling, individual counseling, teach a counseling class, practice counseling. And so every single opportunity that you had to actually be a part of that, you grow. And so, and you could see the people that were uncomfortable with it. You could see the people that can sit there and identify themselves as, I don't have any problems. I don't need this. I don't need counseling. Well, those are the ones that kind of stick out to say, you know what, buddy, I mean, your perception is a little off, because we're all struggling with something. We're not all diagnosable. I mean, let's not go to that extreme, because, I think that the human element, the human condition is what it is, and it existed way before the DSM diagnostical book of diagnosis and psychiatry was ever developed.
We could go off for 2 or 3 shows on that subject. For sure.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things I disagree with that, for sure. But I really appreciate how you've really evolved yourself, and I admire the show, because I love watching it, because I want to see how they figure things out. But also, you can actually see the emotional state. You can see the bond, and in situations where you're like, okay, forget you, I'm out of here. They're actually forced to talk about it. I mean, not forced, but the circumstances forces, being able to resolve it and see how people do with that. And you can see that, the product of that is that you grow stronger, and you start to develop a bond. Like you said, that you and EJ and Jeff, you guys are really close. That's because you guys shared something together, and you shared this experience, and it's unique, and a lot of people aren't going to understand what you've been through, and so, but you guys do. You've been there, and
we had a long conversation the first night we were together. We kicked out the camera crews, and we got rid of our diary cameras, and we laid out in the savannah, and we stared at the stars, and we had a 3.5-hour conversation about how we were going to conduct any kind of differences or slight arguments that we had. And we ultimately decided that we were going to be very humble with each other and have no arguments and none of this petty stuff that was going on, because it was such a big and stressful environment as it is. There's no need to add any more stress from outside socio-political,
Yeah.
So me, Jeff, and EJ sat around and we talked, and we said, okay, we are going to talk. We're going to resolve everything. We're not going to do anything without consulting and talking about everything that we do first. And every decision that we made, everybody was in agreement on.
Yeah.
We had no 2-on-1. It was always, let's talk it out. Why do you disagree? Okay, well, let's figure that out. Okay, let's come to this. All right, now we'll come to this mutual agreement on it. And all 3 of us agree. Good, we got a plan. Now we go. I mean, every single thing that you saw that happened from the moment that me, Jeff, and EJ got together, this was a well-organized, coordinated conversation. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. You're weaker right now. You're weaker right now. So we're going to do it this way. We'll do it that way. And that's how we handle the situation.
Yeah, you dialogue. My sister actually showed me a really interesting book about dialogue, and that some of the first, the initial documentation of dialogue was with the Native Americans. They were called savages, and they'll attack you and they'll scalp you, but then what they would do is this community would sit and under a they would all gather together, and they would talk about differences. They would talk about and identify, okay, I'm having an issue with this in front of the chief, and then the chief would actually help to dialogue and come up with a resolution, and that's how they actually stayed together. So some of the early, I mean, I'm sure it's gone on before then, but this is just a book that was written about, how documented cases of how the Native Americans actually, they dialogued about things. And I think that's something, and dialogue is just talking about it. This is how I feel. This is what's going on. This is how you feel. This is what's going on. How can we figure this out? It's problem solving.
Yeah, it's a simple little game I play in any kind of relationship that I'm having. It's a little minor game that I play, and it can be played with kids as well. And I don't know if it's something that you would like to include in your work, but I always play this game whenever there's any kind of a disagreement. I always ask, what did I say? What did you hear? Because a lot of times we're not processing the same way that someone is speaking. And anyone who's been married or has any kind of real long-term relationship understands that any breakdown is communication breakdown. That's all it is.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So
I agree with that. And that's all.
For 5 seconds, hey, what did I say? What did you hear? Where's the miscommunication?
You know what? I really like that. I really like that, Shane. That's actually a really great way to explain to people, this is where I'm coming from, because you could say something, you can even write a paper and people will read it and it may not read as if, the way that you intended it to. I mean, your message may not be coming across. The same goes
100%.
with vocalization or vocalizing communication. The things that you say may not be emphasized. Hey, Shane, where can people find you? Do you have a website?
I do. ShaneOffTheGrid.com, and my book is Growing Up Institutionalized to Globetrotting. You can get it on Amazon in paperback or Kindle. And the point of the book was cathartic for myself and to give people an understanding that, the world can collapse around them and it is not the end of the world or the end of their life. They can still do amazing things regardless of whatever happens to them if they just become self-aware and understand how they're perceiving and responding to their environment.
Well said. And you know what? That's something that I would highly recommend everybody take an opportunity to do and just remind yourself that everybody's trying. So, Shane, thank you so much for being on the show. You guys
Thank you so much, Russ. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You can find us at w.cbbt.org. Thank you so much for listening.